Hi everybody, Stephanie here from Super Señorita Spanish Stories and More. I taught middle school Spanish for 9 years at a school with a traditional textbook series. Our department had common assessment, so I knew my students had to know specific vocabulary and grammar for certain checkpoints throughout the year, but I was lucky enough to have free reign over how we got there. So I wrote my own curriculum and created all the supplemental tools from scratch. And that's what you're going to find here in my year-long curriculum. So today I'm going to go through what that looks like in more detail so you can make an informed decision about your purchase. Once you open up the zip file, a folder will open on your desktop that looks like this. And within that folder, you have all the different units that comprise this year-long curriculum, plus a workbook, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But let's go ahead and take a look at Chapter 1 as an example. Now remember, I wrote these plans for first-year teachers, so everything is very detailed. The first thing I really like about these lesson plans is that it gives you an overview. This lesson took me 10 weeks to teach. This unit took me 10 weeks to teach. Now, you might be saying, whoa, that is so much time. Keep in mind that I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so I only had to teach 4 chapters a year. If you have to teach more than that, that is totally fine. You can skip. There's a lot of extra activities in here and a lot of extra games that you don't have to do. So don't be overwhelmed by how long it says that I took to do it, because you can adapt and modify as you go. So you can see here, each week tells you what is going to be covered generally. And this is a jump menu. So for example, if I click on week 8, it's going to jump me down to week 8. And this is my teacher guide. So it is going to tell me day by day what to do. It even will tell you, for example, on Tuesday, it tells you what to say to the students to introduce the lesson. Then it gives you a link to a video, a link to some notes, a link to some pictures so that you can do oral questioning, and lastly, a link to some homework. And when I see that all of these are links, for example, if I click on this here, it is going to open up a new tab within Google Drive that has the student copy of the notes. So I can click on this and print copies for them. There's also another way to do that, which I'll show you later on. And you can see everything they need is right here. For example, this picture file is a presentation. I open it up and it's going to take me directly to the presentation that I need with all the pictures I need to do the oral questioning for that lesson. Everything you need is directly in this teacher guide and super easy to access. Now, some of the activities that I use, I love to use storytelling in my classroom. Here you have a story that I wrote that you can read with students for comprehensible input on adjective vocabulary and noun-adjective agreements. You're teaching the grammar and context. Here's a game, here's a Kahoot, here's a quiz at the end of the week. Everything you possibly need is within this teacher guide. You have access to all of these documents in a Google folder right here. So if I click on this Google folder, it's going to give me folders organized by topic for each of the things I'm teaching in this chapter. Here is the teacher's guide as well, and here are the supplemental slides that you might use throughout. You have the objectives for the chapter, which I always show the students when we start, and all sorts of different activities within. And everything is animated so that you show the students a question and give them wait time, and then you click the next button and the answer will appear so they can see it written out for visual learners as well. That's just an example of what the supplemental slides look like. If you need to edit a document or share it with students so that they can write directly on the document, you're first going to have to make a copy of the document. And the way you do that is to go to File, Make a Copy. The reason you would have to share a copy with your students is so that they have access to write on top of it. If you share directly from my lesson plans, most likely your school's firewall is going to prohibit students from accessing the document. One other thing I want to show you is that the year-long curriculum comes with a student workbook. You might decide not to print workbooks for all of your students, but maybe you're somebody that needs a tangible book to hold in your hand that's organized and you can reference rather than lots of different links and documents. And if that's the case, I highly recommend printing a workbook for your own sanity. With my students in the beginning, I just made weekly photocopies and passed them out to students, and we organized everything in a binder. But what I found was that kids were always losing papers. So once I found it for them in a workbook, it was an organizational game changer, and my students loved it because it just simplified things for them so much, and it was also much lighter weight than anything else they had to carry for any of their other classes. So if you can do it, I highly recommend it. Within this workbook, you will find a table of contents of everything that's included, and every single handout that you might print or photocopy for students is within this workbook. There are some cultural readings, there's some notes and practice, more practice, homework, project with rubric, there's a story. So everything you might use throughout the year is in here. I even give you directions on how to print and assemble this workbook. When I used it with my students, I made all the photocopies at school for free. And then I took them to an office supply store to have them coiled bound so they would stay together all year. I charged my students $3 a book. With coupons, it cost me about $2.50 a book to have them bound together. But I charged them $3 so that for the students who couldn't pay, I had a little bit of a cushion to be able to give some workbooks to students for free. Okay, teachers, I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day. Happy teaching.